Story 1. The Girl Who Spoke in Tongues. I grew up in a small, Rust Belt town in Ohio. The kind of place where the steel mill closing in the 90s is still the main topic of conversation. I was 22, freshly dumped, and feeling aimless. To make my devoutly Catholic grandmother happy, I started driving her to Mass every Sunday at St. Jude's. It was boring, repetitive, and smelled like incense and old wood. But one Sunday in October, I saw her. She was sitting 3 pews ahead of us. She didn't look like the usual parishioners, mostly elderly widows and bored families. She was young, maybe my age, with striking jet-black hair cut in a sharp bob and pale skin that looked almost translucent against her dark coat. After Mass, I waited by the holy water font. I'm not usually bold, but something about her pulled me in. "I haven't seen you here before," I said. Smooth, right? She turned. Her eyes were startling. One was blue, the other was a fractured mix of green and brown. Heterochromia. "I'm new," she said softly. Her name was Elias. We hit it off immediately. She was funny, smart, but guarded. She told me she had moved here to live with her aunt after a difficult situation back in Chicago. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. We exchanged numbers. For the next 2 weeks, we were inseparable. We texted constantly. We went for coffee, walked through the autumn leaves in the park, talked about music and dreams. But there were red flags I chose to ignore. She had no social media, no Instagram, no Snapchat, nothing. She said she liked her privacy. She never let me pick her up at her house. We always met in public. And sometimes she would just zone out. We'd be talking and her eyes would glaze over like she was listening to a frequency I couldn't hear. On our 3rd official date, I decided to take her to a lookout point called The Ledges. It's a cliff overlooking the valley, accessible by a long, winding road through the dense Cuyahoga Valley National Park. It was twilight. The sky was a bruised purple. We were sitting in my car, the heater humming, eating takeout burgers. The conversation turned deep. I asked her about her parents. Elias stiffened. "My father, he thinks he owns people," she whispered. "He thinks he's a prophet." I didn't know what to say to that. "Is that why you left?" She nodded. "He said I have a purpose, that I can't run from it." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the car changed. The air felt heavy, static-charged, like right before a lightning strike. Elias dropped her burger wrapper. Her hands started to tremble violently. "Elias?" I reached out to touch her shoulder. She snapped her head toward me, but she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes had rolled back completely into her skull. All I could see were the whites, veined with red. Then, she opened her mouth. The sound that came out wasn't human. It wasn't a scream. It was a low, guttural chanting. It sounded like 3 voices speaking at once, layering over each other in a language that sounded ancient, harsh consonants and clicking sounds. Aramaic? Latin? I don't know. "Elias, stop! You're scaring me!" I yelled. Her body seized up. Her back arched off the seat, defying gravity, her head slamming repeatedly against the headrest. Thump, thump, thump. I panicked. I fumbled for my phone to call 911. "Get out!" a voice hissed. Not the chanting voice. Her voice, but distorted. "What?" She stopped shaking. Her head lolled to the side, facing the window. "He found me," she whispered. She unlocked the door and threw it open. Before I could grab her, she bolted. She didn't run like a normal person. She ran on all fours, scrambling up the steep embankment into the dark woods with terrifying speed. "Elias!" I screamed, jumping out of the car. I shone my phone's flashlight into the trees. About 50 yards up the hill, I saw her. She was standing perfectly still, looking back at me. But she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, emerging from the shadows of a massive oak tree, were two tall figures dressed in dark robes. They didn't have faces, just hoods. One of them placed a hand on her shoulder. Elias didn't fight. She turned and walked with them into the darkness. I called the police. I told them everything. They searched the woods with dogs for 3 days. They found her coat, torn and muddy, but no sign of her. When they went to the address she had given me for her aunt's house, it was an empty lot. A burned-down house that hadn't stood there for 10 years. I never saw her again, but sometimes, when I'm driving past the ledges at night, I hear that chanting in the static of my radio. And I wonder if she escaped her father, or if he finally came to collect his profit. Story 2. The Lights in the Badlands. I drive a 1999 Jeep Cherokee. It's a tank, but it has over 200,000 miles on it, and a radiator that likes to throw tantrums. Last summer, I was driving solo through West Texas, heading towards Big Bend National Park to do some astrophotography. If you've never been to West Texas, imagine Mars, but with more cacti and snakes. It's desolate, beautiful, and unforgiving. I was on a long stretch of Ranch Road 170, miles from civilization. The sun was setting, painting the desert in deep reds and purples. That's when the temperature gauge spiked. Before I could react, steam started hissing out from under the hood. I cursed and pulled over. There was no shoulder, just a drop-off into the rocky scrubland. To avoid blocking the narrow lane, I steered the Jeep onto an old, overgrown mining trail that branched off the main road. I drove about 100 yards in, just to be safe, before killing the engine. Popped the hood. Radiator hose blew. I had water and duct tape, but the engine was too hot to touch. I had to wait. Then, the sky turned green. A massive summer monsoon storm rolled in over the Chisos Mountains. Within 10 minutes, the twilight was swallowed by pitch-black clouds. Rain didn't just fall, it hammered the roof like gravel. Lightning flashed constantly, illuminating the desert in strobe light bursts. I sat in the driver's seat, watching the storm rage. I checked my phone. No service, of course. I reclined the seat to try and sleep. I figured I'd fix the hose at sunrise. Around midnight, the rain stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was heavy. You know that ringing in your ears when a loud noise suddenly cuts out? It was like that. I sat up to stretch. I looked out the windshield into the vast, empty darkness. That's when I saw the first light. It was faint, bobbing in the distance, maybe half a mile away, towards the foothills. At first I thought it was a star, or maybe a reflection. Then a second light appeared to the left of it, then a third to the right. They weren't stars. They were flashlights, or headlamps, and they were moving. I watched them for a minute, feeling a mix of confusion and relief. Hikers, I thought. Maybe border patrol? But the way they moved was wrong. They weren't walking in a line. They were spreading out, darting back and forth in jagged, frantic zigzags. They moved fast, too fast for the rocky terrain, and they were getting closer. a cold pit formed in my stomach. I turned off my interior dome light and slouched down in the seat. I watched as the three lights converged about 200 yards from my Jeep. They stopped moving. They just stood there, their beams pointing straight up into the sky like pillars of light. Then, the sound reached me. It wasn't talking. It wasn't shouting. It was whistling. A sharp, piercing whistle. Twit-to-woo! Then a laugh, a high-pitched, manic cackle that sounded like a hyena. My instinct screamed, "Run!" I knew if I stayed in the Jeep, I was a sitting duck. It's a glass box. If they had guns, I was dead. I grabbed my phone and my heavy metal flashlight, Maglite. I quietly opened the passenger door, slipped out, and crawled on my belly into a dry arroyo, a ditch, about 30 feet away. I hid behind a cluster of mesquite bushes, pressing my face into the dirt. From my hiding spot, I watched. The three lights started moving again. They rushed toward my Jeep. When they got into the clearing, the lightning flashed, and I saw them. They weren't Border Patrol. They were three men, shirtless, wearing tattered jeans. Their skin was painted or covered in mud, pale gray patterns on their chests and faces. They didn't look at the engine. They didn't look for a driver to help. They circled the Jeep like a pack of wolves. One of them jumped onto the hood of my car. He started stomping on the windshield. Crunch, crunch. The other two shined their lights into the windows, screaming gibberish. It wasn't Spanish, and it wasn't English. It sounded like they were speaking in tongues, or just making guttural noises. Grack! Ki-ki-ki! The guy on the hood pulled something from his waistband. A revolver. He pointed it at the sky and fired. Bang! The gunshot echoed off the canyon walls. I flinched, biting my lips so hard I tasted blood. They were hunting. They were trying to flush me out. If I had been in that car, the bullet would have gone through the roof. They spent the next 10 minutes destroying my car. They slashed the tires. They smashed the headlights. They rocked the vehicle back and forth, trying to tip it over. I laid in that ditch for what felt like hours, praying the lightning wouldn't reveal my position. I tried dialing 911 again. 1 bar. I hit call. It didn't ring. It just failed. I tried again. Ring. Ring. 911, state your emergency, I whispered, my mouth practically touching the microphone. I'm off Ranch Road 170. 3 men. They have a gun. They are destroying my car. I'm hiding in a ditch. Stay on the line, the operator said. I have your coordinates. Suddenly, the men stopped screaming. They froze. They looked toward the main road. In the distance, miles away, I saw the faint red and blue flicker of lights reflecting off the low clouds. A state trooper was patrolling the highway, probably looking for flash flood damage. The leader on the hood whistled again. Twit-twoo! In unison, the 3 men killed their flashlights. The darkness was instant and absolute. I heard the scramble of boots on gravel moving away from me, back toward the foothills. They moved silently, like ghosts. By the time the state trooper pulled down the mining trail, illuminated by his spotlight, the men were gone. The trooper found me shivering in the ditch. He looked at my Jeep, windshield shattered, tires slashed, bullet hole in the roof. And then he looked at the footprints. You're lucky, son, he said, shining his light on the mud-painted handprints smeared all over my windows. We've had reports of drifters out here. Some of them, the heat makes them snap. They revert to something primitive. They never caught them. But when I got home, I found something the police missed. Tucked into the bumper of my Jeep was a small, hand-carved bone. It looked like a finger. I don't go camping anymore, and I definitely don't stop for rainstorms. Story 3. The town that reused its assets. My best friend Sam and I are photographers. Last summer, we decided to do a road trip down the historic Route 66 in New Mexico. We wanted to capture that decaying Americana aesthetic: neon signs, rusted cars, and abandoned motels. We were driving between Tucumcari and Santa Rosa, avoiding the main Interstate 40 to stick to the old frontage roads. It was around 11 a.m., blazing hot, with the kind of heat shimmer that makes the horizon look like it's melting. We were low on water, so when we saw a sign for a town called Prosperity, 2 miles, we turned off. Prosperity wasn't on our paper map, but that's not uncommon for these dying desert towns. As we rolled in, the vibe was off. The town looked too perfect. The paint on the buildings was vibrant turquoise and pink. The streets were clean, no tumbleweeds, no trash. But it was dead silent. No cars moving. No people walking. Just the hum of electricity. We pulled into a diner called Sally's to grab iced coffees. We walked in. It was a classic 50s-style diner. The waitress behind the counter was striking. She had bright red hair done up in a victory roll style, and she wore a name tag that said Darlene. But what I noticed most was her hand. She had a thick white bandage wrapped around her left index finger, with a little cartoon smiley face drawn on it in blue ink. We ordered 2 coffees to go. She smiled, a wide, stiff smile, and handed them to us. "Y'all come back now, you hear?" she chirped. We left, feeling a bit unsettled by her intensity. Across the street there was a general store. Sam wanted to buy a pack of cigarettes, so we walked over. We pushed the door open. The bell chimed. Standing behind the register was the clerk. It was Darlene. Same red hair, same victory rolls, same name tag. And on her left index finger, the same white bandage with the blue smiley face. I froze in the doorway. I looked back across the street through the window. The diner was right there. There was no tunnel, no bridge. Unless she sprinted across the street the second we left and beat us here, which was impossible, we walked straight across. She shouldn't be here. "Darlene?" I asked, my voice shaking. She looked up. "Can I help you, sugar?" Didn't you just serve us coffee across the street?" She tilted her head. Her eyes didn't blink. "I've been here all morning, hun, stocking the Marlboros." Sam grabbed my arm. His grip was painful. "Dude, let's go." We backed out of the store. "I need to check," I said. "I need to know I'm not crazy." We ran back across the street to the diner. I pushed the door open. The counter was empty. A man walked out from the kitchen. He was huge, bald, wearing a grease-stained apron. "We're closed!" he shouted. "Where's the waitress?" I asked. "Red hair? Darlene?" The man frowned. "Ain't no Darlene here, just me and my son. We've been closed since 10. My stomach dropped. I looked at the coffee cup in my hand. It was still cold. "Let's get the hell out of here," Sam whispered. We ran to my car. We needed gas, but we decided to risk it and drive to the next town. As we pulled out of the diner parking lot, we passed the town's only gas station. It was completely empty. Not a single car. The pumps looked ancient. I looked down at the radio to change the station. Maybe took my eyes off the road for 3 seconds. "What the?" Sam gasped. I looked up. We were passing the gas station again. Or maybe I had just looked away and looked back. It was packed. Every single pump was occupied. But not by random cars. They were all driving identical, pristine 1950s Chevrolet Bel Airs. All candy apple red. And the drivers? They were all men in gray suits and fedoras. They weren't pumping gas. They were all standing perfectly still next to their cars, staring at us as we drove by. Their heads turned in unison, tracking our movement. I slammed on the gas. "Go, go, go!" Sam yelled. We sped out of town, doing 90 on the cracked pavement. We didn't speak for 10 miles. The desert scrub flew by in a blur. "Okay," I breathed, checking the rearview mirror. Empty road. "We're good. We're out." Then, we saw the truck. Ahead of us, cruising in the right lane, was a rusted yellow pickup truck hauling a trailer full of hay bales. One of the bales was loose, flapping in the wind. We passed it. The driver was an old man in a blue cap. He didn't look at us. "Weird old truck," Sam muttered. We kept driving. Straight road, no turnoffs. We were doing 85 miles per hour. The truck was doing maybe 50. 5 minutes later, Sam pointed a shaking finger at the windshield. "Leo, look!" Ahead of us was a truck. A rusted yellow pickup, hauling hay, with a loose bale flapping in the wind. "No way," I said. "It's another one. A coincidence." We passed it. The driver was the same old man in the blue cap. I felt like I was going to throw up. It was physically impossible for him to get ahead of us. "Don't look at him," I ordered. I floored the accelerator. We hit 100 miles per hour. 10 minutes passed. There it was again. The yellow truck. The hay. The old man. This time, as we passed him, he turned his head. He looked right at me. His face didn't have eyes. Where his eyes should have been, there was just smooth skin. And his mouth was sewn shut. I screamed. I didn't care about the speed limit anymore. I drove until the engine temperature gauge was screaming. We finally hit the on-ramp for Interstate 40. The moment the tires hit the main highway, the air pressure changed. My ears popped. The radio, which had been static the whole time, suddenly blasted a pop song. "Check the time," Sam whispered. We had pulled into Prosperity at 11 a.m. We spent maybe 15 minutes there. We drove for maybe 30 minutes after. It should have been 11:45 a.m. The clock on the dashboard read 3:30 p.m. We lost 4 hours. 4 hours of our lives, gone in a blink. I checked my camera later. I had taken photos of the diner. Every photo was corrupted. Just black static. Except for one. A picture of the gas station. It showed the red cars, but there were no drivers. The cars were floating about 6 inches off the ground. We never developed the film. I burned it. And I will never, ever get off the interstate again.